Hello and welcome to Juliet and Lucy's Quiet Leadership Revolution, the podcast for senior and aspiring leaders who want to make their voice heard and their impact felt through thoughtful, reflective, confident leadership. I'm Juliet Corbett, an executive coach and strategist, and I work one-to-one with senior leaders, guiding them to find their strategic focus, empower their teams, and regain control over their time.
And I'm Lucy Gower, a facilitator, trainer and coach, and I empower leaders to build their happy, confident and high-performing teams. Today we're going to be talking about why networking is a critical leadership skill. Now, I love this topic. I really like networking and I train people in networking skills. And my biggest insight is that most people tell me that they hate networking, or they've had a bad networking experience, or they don't like to go, or there's some big barriers for people as to why they don't love networking.
Yeah. It's almost like if you say you like networking, you're kind of admitting a guilty secret to the world. I love networking. From my perspective, I get to go and talk to really interesting people.
Yeah.
And like, what's better than that? I mean, and okay, let's be completely honest. Maybe not all the conversations are interesting, but that's okay. You move on to the next person.
Exactly.
And
With networking, you don't have to stick with them for very long if it's not an interesting conversation. You can politely move on.
Exactly. So why is it that people get stuck here? I mean, because you and I maybe are the ones that do naturally like it, but we've had lots of conversations with people who haven't naturally enjoyed it. Yeah. What a kind of mindset shift.
Yeah, for me, I think that there's this kind of rather salesperson-y, you've got to kind of turn up with your elevator pitch, handing out business cards like your life depended on it in some sort of speed dating, networking business card scenario, which sounds horrendous and is horrendous. So if you think networking is talking at as many people as possible, selling yourself, practicing a pitch and throwing business cards around, no wonder that you might not feel like it's the best use of your time.
I'd hate it if that's what it is.
And for me, the mindset shift is thinking about what networking really is. And I see it as making connections with people, having conversations, being curious, finding out about other people, but also going with a mindset of how can I add value? Well, how can I help?
Yeah.
And when people shift to how can I help to I need to tell everyone about me and what I'm doing, I don't know, something just relaxes and it becomes like it could be an enjoyable experience, not something that I have to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's how can I help others? What value can I bring to this room? Who in this room needs me right now so that I can help them? And then the flip side of that, because it's always, a reciprocal process. The flip side of that is not I walk away with people I can sell at, because that's just horrible. The flip side is I learn stuff and I don't know what I'm going to learn. Got no idea. But I walk out of every interaction, whether it's formally a networking event or just an opportunity to have conversations with other people in a different context, I come away with something that I've learned about me, about the world, about them, and it all sparks new ideas.
New ideas.
So that's
different
the trade.
Thinking. Exactly. And going with a mindset of I'm going to enjoy this, and there's things that I can learn here that I can bring back to something that I'm working on at work. It could be something in your home life. You're like, oh, hang on a minute, that person's doing it like that. I'll do something different. So take the pressure. Exactly. I think if you're one of the people that are thinking, oh, I'm listening to this episode, but I'm never going to go networking, and I'm kind of doing it because I've listened to some others and they were all right. I think just give yourself permission to go and be curious and just enjoy chatting and making connections with other people. And see how you go.
Definitely. So there's two other things that I think come up sometimes. One is sometimes people feel like they're being judged. If you're walking into a room and you genuinely put aside the thought process that you're being judged, just going with a really open mind if you can, And if you feel like you are being judged in that room, just leave.
Yeah.
Like that's not a comfortable environment for you. That's fine. Walk away. Because I've been in situations, the vast majority of where I have not received judgment from others, and I don't feel that way. Sometimes it runs in my head.
Hmm.
What are they thinking of me? But I just need to settle that thought down
Hmm.
and carry on. But I have been in a couple of rooms where I've thought, yeah, I'm not feeling welcome here. This is not for me. Just
Yeah.
walk away. Just walk away.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed.
and then the other thing is there's this myth, isn't there, around introverts and extroverts and
Yes.
one being better at networking than the other. We actually did a whole episode on this, didn't we, about the myth of the
Yeah.
extrovert being the better leader.
Yeah.
And so maybe if you're thinking, it's just exhausting, well, yes,
Yeah.
sometimes for some people it can be exhausting. There's some energy management side to that potentially. But listening back maybe to that other episode we did on some of that insight into introvert, extrovert,
Yeah. And I would,
kind of attitudes to
I
networking.
mean, I sit on the more introverted end of the spectrum. So I would say this, I
Mm,
think introverts can be really good networkers because they're really good at listening. They're less about talking and they're more
yeah,
about listening as a big generalization. And yeah, you do have
yeah,
to manage your energy. If you're in a room of people for a couple of hours, I need to go and be on my own for a few hours after that.
yeah,
But I love being in the room with people and I love finding out
yeah,
about other people, what they're up to, what their thoughts and ideas are. So you
yeah.
can't use I'm an
And
introvert as a reason not to go networking anymore.
yeah, I'm afraid that's true. So I'm also on the introvert end of the spectrum. I've just come back from a conference which has been wall to wall networking for 3 days. I am exhausted.
Mm,
However, what I discovered time and time again is that for me, it's the deeper, meaningful conversations
mm,
where the joy of the networking happens, and it's
mm.
less about meeting as many people as possible than
Yeah,
finding a couple of really good connections in each kind of break in that conference and so on.
yeah,
And that for me is less exhausting than the kind of speed dating
yeah, yeah.
way of doing networking, which doesn't tend to trade that value for the what can I learn is not going to happen in a 30-second brief
Don't
conversation
advocate
about
the speed
no,
dating approach to networking.
no, no. So having hopefully, and maybe you started this episode loving networking yourself, in which case you are in good hands because you're with us. If you started this episode thinking I really don't like doing this, a couple of mindset shifts to think about there.
Mm,
I wonder whether we can start to think about why do it? Why is networking important for us as leaders?
yeah. So I've written a blog about this, which we'll share in the notes,
Mm,
but it comes from, I guess, thinking sort of big picture about how working life has changed. When I look at my parents, they did the same role, often in the same organization for, all of their life. Like that whole thing around a job for life um, doesn't really exist anymore. And I think that work was used to be more predictable, would almost kind of trade loyalty for job security, and things that are more valuable in the workplace today is less about loyalty and security and more about being able to adapt. Organizations and employees need to change. It's about learning. We know that when we give people autonomy, that they lean into their roles, they perform better. And having meaningful work and learning is really key and really important. And I see networking as a integral part of that learning. So to your point earlier, Juliet, you go in and you're curious and you come away having learned
mm,
something,
mhm,
that is as valuable as going on a training course or any other type of learning. It's just part of the learning portfolio. So when we're more networked, there's lots of evidence to show that our teams perform better. There was some research by Google who found that the highest performing employees build larger and more productive networks and getting new ideas and bringing them back to the organization. So, as a
mm.
leader, encouraging that feels like a sensible thing to do.
Yes. So it's wonderful that the interests align here. So as a leader who's recognizing that they're career might not always be in one company, and there will be a moment where that network comes in to their future career progression, but actually also their current employer, their current organization is benefiting because of the knowledge and enthusiasm and ideas that are coming back in to the organization. And that's really critical for that innovation, or at least the spark of those new ideas. It often isn't a brand new idea, is it? It's combining different ideas from other places into a new context.
Yeah, exactly. There's also some research back from the 1970s by a sociologist. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to get his name correct. I'm pronouncing it Mark Granovetter. I think that's correct.
We're going to go with that.
We're going to go with it. And
Yeah.
I'm fingers crossed. I'm right. But his theory, which is around the power of weak ties. So you have your immediate networks, friends, family, close work colleagues, and you gather those people around you because a lot of the ways that you think and your outlook on life is similar. And the value in so those are your strong ties, and the value in the weak ties, people that are in different sectors, departments, who think differently to you, have a different range of skills, experience, and perspectives, are the nodes of the value in networks, because that's where you get different perspectives, different ideas, cognitive diversity through the networks that you're making. And some of his research talks about how people with diverse networks are better at innovation, how they are better at bringing new ideas in. They are seen as innovators as well. So if you're thinking about how you're positioning yourself as a leader, if you have excellent networks, that is looked on favourably because of the conversations that you're having and the different perspectives that you're bringing. There's a whole bigger list. I'll share some of some of the other benefits, but those are the ones that stand out for me, and I'll share some of those in the notes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that also goes to those, both the individual and the team benefit, doesn't it? It's benefiting you, because I know I've read about kind of the number of job opportunities that come from those weak ties as well. It's not normally from the strong ties that those opportunities are going to come. Well, job opportunities, but opportunities to be, profiled in the press, or to have a keynote speech somewhere, or the opportunities that allow us to have more visibility and progression in our career often come from those weak ties. And from the team's perspective, bringing in those ideas from the large, diverse kind of sources is always going to be a better source for innovation and ideas and creativity to be sparked.
And it's valuable for them as individuals. It's valuable for you as a leader, leading a diverse team. And it's important for the whole organisation. Like your organisation, wherever you work, doesn't have the monopoly on all the knowledge. It's by being well networked that you've got scouts looking at trends, what's coming next, what other people are doing, how problems have been solved in different contexts. And organizations can get very inward looking, and kind of churn around the same ideas, the same problems keep going round and round. And if you're not looking outside of that, so having your people as scouts going out into the world and bringing back different ways of doing things, the same problems get turned around, someone else has solved it somewhere.
Yeah. Which as a leader means you can actually be quite strategic in actually mapping out as a team where your networks are, and then maybe tasking people with going out and finding certain piece of information from certain sectors, helping us to understand as a team where are our gaps, where do we not have a strong network, and thinking about, okay, what conferences or events can we go to that helps to fill those gaps. But actually it's not something which you just let happen. It's a culture that as the leader you can encourage your team to really be strategic about it.
And going to conferences is work. I often talk to people who are like, oh, I'm going to this conference, and feeling like they're kind of bunking off, and it's like, no, this is work. Going to the conference, having the conversations. So when I managed a team in a big organization and we'd attend the sector conference, I used to get really cross. I'll be honest, I used to get really cross when I'd see my team going around in a huddle, and so I would say, it's brilliant and gorgeous that you all want to hang out together, and I love that. However, we're here because we are on a mission to find out what other people are up to, how other people have solved things, and then we bring it all back together. And I think that there's also something, we're
Yeah.
talking about conferences, but I think this networking applies within the organization as well. Someone in the data team has got the answer to the problem that someone in comms is trying to solve
Yeah.
if they would only just have a conversation where completely different perspectives meet.
Yeah. And it's almost worth thinking about what a good network looks like. So a really strong network, and
Mm,
it will be different for each person, but mapping out what elements need to be in that network and that internal breaking down the silos. And you're not going to
mhm,
know that this other team's got the solution for your problem unless you're just
mhm.
having random conversations with enough people about vaguely work related things so that you then unearth these connections and these solutions. So the internal side is a critical part of that mapping
Yeah.
out of that effective network.
And being deliberate about that is really key. I know one of the large management consultancies that when they get a new client in, where they're there to solve a problem, they will get uh, across the whole organization are invited to a world cafe set
Mm,
up where questions that the client has are posed and people from around the organization come and give their kind of thoughts and opinions.
mm,
And this is done in a very structured way. And this adds massive value to clients because they know that they've got lots of different perspectives working on their problem. And
yeah,
that has become like, kind of one of their, I suppose, like key selling points,
yeah,
that they're using the power of the networks within their organization to help clients, not
yeah.
just the people on the project team. And the people on the project team um, are pragmatic enough to know they don't have all the answers, and getting
Mm-hmm,
different perspectives from across the business
mm-hmm.
is really key.
Yeah, it's that kind of discovery stage of defining the problem correctly. And I think quite a lot of us actually live our lives in get the job done mode. This is the task,
Yeah,
it's a task in front of me. I'm going to focus on this task, I'm going to achieve it and move on. Um,
yeah,
and actual fact, the big question, are you working on the right tasks? Are you solving the right problem? And it's through these accidental interactions across the organization that you start to see opportunities or patterns or things you want to be focusing on more, things you want to stop doing. A lot of this emerges from just immersing yourself in a
yeah,
wider set of information, which means a wider set of
yeah.
conversations, a wider network.
And as a leader, your role in setting that culture, because what you're talking about here is a culture of having
Yeah.
conversations, looking outside of the organization or outside of our immediate department and bringing stuff back in, is to not just give permission, but to kind of encourage, and perhaps there's objectives, KPIs, some sort of measure around what that looks like, whether it's going
Mm,
to conferences, whether it's talking to peers across different departments, or people, or somebody who's got the equivalent job in a similar organization, whether it's that you provide a bit of budget for coffees so that
mm,
people can go for coffees and
mm.
chats, or whether that a percentage of your time is about networking outside of your core team, different for every organization,
Yeah.
but being deliberate about it on the belief that we don't hold all the information. The problems have been solved elsewhere. Different perspectives is going to add massive value to the
Yeah.
impact that we're able to make.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in doing that, it's remembering what we talked about earlier about it, it's also finding other humans that you can have fun with and learn from. And there can be a kind of a joyful exchange. So it
Yeah,
might be that as you're plotting out, you'll come across people, they've got all the right information, but I'm not really looking forward to the next meeting or the next time I'm going to be interacting with this person. It's like, okay, great, you might want to carry on, but actually, probably there are other people out there that you're just going to connect with a little bit more
yeah,
easily. You're going to have a bit of a kind of a lighter conversation, a more
yeah.
joyful conversation. And it's likely that that information is not held by just that one individual. So I think there's a combination, isn't there, that we can,
Yeah.
even I can say we can over strategize this stuff. Some of it just happens because
Juliet,
I know.
goodness, you
Listen
are
to me.
exhausted from this conference. What's
I must
happened?
be. Something has changed. I think it's actually interesting you say that. I think it's because this conference was so much fun, and it was
Ah,
about just navigating the room to find interesting, fun people, and the
yeah,
joy that
yeah,
comes
yeah,
from that is energizing in a way that if I'd gone in with a pure strategy, I need to meet the following people. I must find them. That's not going to be fun for me, and it's not going to be fun for them. Good grief, when I find them with that kind of attitude, I terrify them in a few moments.
That's hilarious. I've got this vision of you like in some sort of detective outfit with a clipboard. And people going, oh,
Exactly.
hang on, I'm on Juliet's hit list and sort of ducking under
No,
tables.
no, that's not a good way to do it. Although my strategic brain might recommend that, it's quite clear to me that's not a good way to do it. And by the way, a quick shout out to everyone at the COBIS conference in London in kind of mid-May, which is when we're recording this. That was the conference where I had that immense feeling of connection and belonging and joy. It was really good. So, is there anything else that we can put onto a map of what makes a good network? So, we've talked about don't forget the internal of your current
Mm-hmm.
organization. We've talked about
Mm-hmm.
finding kind of best practice leaders in your own sector. We kind of touched on the fact that there'll be people solving the problems that you're facing from completely different sectors.
Yeah.
And we've talked about finding people that just spark some kind of joy and some kind of
Fun.
lightness, some fun in what we're doing. Um, the one other group that I think might be missing from that is
Mhm.
the role models that you want. So even though you may not be doing one-to-one conversations with things like LinkedIn, you can also include in your network, at least your virtual
Mhm.
network, some really global names of people who are
Mhm.
talking the kind of things that you want to talk about. And although maybe that's a little bit less of a two-way conversation, counting those people as being those are my aspirational role
Yeah.
models that I really look up to and I really learn
Yeah.
from. It's kind of blending between network and learning, maybe, but I think I'd like to think of them as being part of my network. Even if they don't know me. Simon Sinek, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to say, does not know me, but I count the work that he puts out in the world influences me. And so I consider that as being part of my network. I don't know, am I seeing this differently to the way you'd see it?
It's my thinking face.
This is an audio
Um,
podcast, Lucy. I'm not sure they can see your thinking
I know,
face.
that's right. Didn't know you were going to ask that, so I don't know what I think about it. I'm a reflector. Yes, I think I've never thought about it quite like that before. And I do agree with you. It's thinking, I suppose, when I'm thinking about what are the emerging trends and who do I follow to
Mm,
look at what's coming down the line. So I think when I'm looking at my network in the context that you've just talked about, it's often some of those big names that then the trends start to trickle through. And so I would absolutely include that because your organization is in one form or another is going to be following trends. So in your particular
mm,
industry, what are people saying? Um, and especially if you've got a role that is strategic, when you're looking 3, 5, 10 or more years out, those are the voices that is helpful to take into consideration when you're
yeah,
looking at that longer term planning.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Okay, so looking at the time, I'm thinking we've covered most of the ground we'd plotted out on this particular topic. Anything
Mm.
else? What have we missed?
Yes, I think that we've not talked about the importance of retaining talent and networking.
Mm,
So
hmm.
there's something for me that is really important about um, how people learn and progress when they're within an organization. And sometimes, well, there's two things. One, you might be a practitioner and you might not want to take that next step to management. And sometimes there isn't anywhere for you to go. Maybe you do want that next step up, but your manager is never going to leave, but you don't want to leave the organization. And there's something about if I'm looking at networking as a learning opportunity and a way of learning and growing and developing your connections and perhaps finding different collaborations. As a leader, if you're able to encourage people to be autonomous in how they network and they go and seek out learning, things that inspire them, things that connect them back to what they're doing, there is evidence around how that can keep your good people a little bit longer if there isn't
Mm,
anywhere for them to go.
mm,
Secondary to that, if you've got a really good person and it's within your gift, I'd really encourage you to think about what else is it that they need in order to stay and continue to learn and develop and
yeah,
to learn and develop. but networking, in my mind, forms a part of that. And
Yeah.
networking could be mentors as well. Um, and networking might provide that person with their next opportunity. But actually, as a leader, that is part of your role, developing your team.
Mm.
If they're brilliant, you want them to stay. But actually, sometimes being able to
Yeah.
get them ready to go is part of the role too.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. The word that comes to mind for me is the stretch project. So often I talk to leaders who have got really promising talent in their team, but there's nowhere hierarchically for them to go up at the moment. It's crafting out a stretch project that allows them to grow, delivers something specific to the organization, and showcases what they can do without necessarily requiring a hierarchical promotion.
Mm.
And some of those
Mm.
might include being tasked to go and do a bit of market research by going and doing some of the networking we've been talking about, formulating it into, the 5 key trends that we need to be aware of, and then coming back
Mm-hmm.
to the team to deliver that. It might also be to do with visibility of your team, and that you
Mm-hmm.
as leader are not always the one who's going to be on the stage to get that visibility. And there are
Absolutely, yeah.
often really good conference talk, like speaking opportunities for the types of people who are true experts, like deep expertise in an area, and don't necessarily have the interest to move up the hierarchy. That's not what's driving them, because of the
Mm.
additional line management and so on that comes in to play higher up. But giving them an opportunity through their network and then through conferences and perhaps being on the
Mm-hmm.
stage rather than just in the audience, that's a great stretch project
Yeah,
in terms of public speaking, going and researching the content of that, the
yeah.
profile that brings them, or podcast interviews actually as another way of doing it, if not in
Yeah,
person. And I think those are great types of stretch projects. Of course, there are many more that wouldn't come under this topic of networking, but ways that
yeah,
you can retain talent, which also
yeah,
benefits the team as it is now.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the thing I'd add into that is, secondments into different
Yeah, yeah,
teams across the business, and bringing that back to your own team as
yeah.
well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is, again, given that we're talking about internal networks as being part of networking, absolutely counts in terms of the way we're defining it here.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything else, or should we kind of wrap up and think about the key things we want people to take away?
I've got nothing else to add. I think I've said everything.
There we go. Lucy is speechless.
And
Let it be noted.
that's a
I love it.
new, yeah. So, Juliet, you go first this time. What are your 3 key takeaways?
So, if necessary, that reframing part of it, I think, is really important. Understanding that this is a learning opportunity. This isn't about like cold selling at people. Please don't just talk and talk and talk at people. Not fun to be on the receiving end of that. It's about that genuine two-way interaction.
Yeah,
And what you're giving is as much value as you can to that room. You're being in service mode. And what you're getting is the learning that comes from those contacts and those connections. And then
yeah,
nurturing those over time. It's not a one shot thing. It's nurturing those relationships over
exactly.
time. I think that's the key thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. The things that I'd add into that is think about your weak ties. So yeah, it can be really easy to network with people that you already know, but the weak tie dynamic where you're
Mm.
getting different thoughts, perspectives, and experience is massively important. Be deliberate about it, whether you
Mm.
lead a team and help them to do it, or whether you're leading in kind of your own sphere of influence, if you like. And enjoy yourself. Remember to
Yeah.
enjoy it. Go seek out the fun people
Yeah.
and enjoy the experience as you are learning.
Yeah. Follow your intuition as to where the fun is, as well as being a bit strategic in the back of your mind as well. Definitely.
Yeah.
So let us know if you've got feedback, thoughts, things we haven't covered, additional challenges,
Mm.
topics that we've maybe touched on briefly in this conversation, but actually you'd like us to go into a bit more depth in another episode. Please do let us know. We love hearing from people, don't we, Lucy? Love.
Mm.
Yeah, we
We
see the
do.
numbers go
We do.
up on the dashboard we've got for our podcast. We see the number of listeners going up, which is really exciting. But we really love it
Yeah.
when people let us know the impact it's having on the questions they've got, the topics. So there we
Yeah,
go.
absolutely.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. I'm Juliet Corbett, an executive coach and strategist working one to one with senior leaders.
And I'm Lucy Gower, a facilitator, trainer, and coach, and I help leaders develop high performing teams. I also run the Lucidity Network, which is a network of leaders being curious and enjoying the learning journey. So if you are interested in being more deliberate about your networking, do check out the link in the comments. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it also with colleagues and help leverage the impact of the Quiet Leadership Revolution.